How's it going, everybody? Welcome into the Skyline Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jack Hartman, joined, as always, by my good friend, my co-host from the West Coast, Steelers fan number one in my life, Nick Normand. Nick, how you doing today, man?
Doing well, doing well. And that's high praise from you because you're back in Pennsylvania now. So if I'm the number one Steelers fan, you must know a good number of them being back there. And so
It's
very
true.
high praise. I appreciate that a lot. But yes, I myself, of course, very big Steelers fan. And I'm getting excited. Like I can taste it. We already got that taste of college football this last weekend with some awesome matchups. NFL, we get NFL in the next week. We get Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Monday. In the next week, we got 4 days with football on it with the Friday game in Brazil. So I'm stoked about it. I'm going to be watching a hell of a lot of football over the next week. How are you doing, Jack?
Yeah, doing well. College football season started this last week too, which means you don't need to fret on that Saturday. We've got college football happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, doing well. My Syracuse Orange lost last week to the Tennessee Volunteers, which I knew it was a long shot that they would win. I think the score doesn't tell the whole story in both good ways and bad ways for Syracuse. In some ways, I'm like, this game was nowhere near as close as the score showed. In other ways, I'm like, the game was closer than the score showed. You know, in the fourth quarter, they had the ball with the chance to go make it a one possession game. So, But anyway, but yeah, no, just really excited that football is happening again. It's the most wonderful time of the year. So yeah, but hey, we are recording on the Monday before the NFL season starts, and we are going through our award winner predictions for this year. So we're going to be hitting the rookie of the years for both offense and defense, the player of the years for offense and defense, the protector of the year, new award to give the offensive linemen some love, coach of the year, comeback player of the year, and of course the MVP award winner. So let's just get right into this. Nick, tell me who you have as your offensive rookie of the year this year.
Offensive rookie of the year, there were really two guys that I was thinking about. I'm actually high on both of their teams to take a jump. I'm talking about Ashton Genty and Cam Ward. They were both really highly drafted as offensive dudes. Cam Ward going number one, and Genty, I believe, going 7 to the Raiders. I'm going to go with Genty here as the offensive rookie of the year. I just think that the Raiders' offense sum total is going to look better than the Titans. And just the comment that I heard Cam Ward say this summer describing the Titans' offense as mid, I was like, okay, I trust you. Like I've seen your physical tools and gifts be showing through here in the preseason. I've seen him slinging the ball, and I have seen his receivers dropping some gorgeous passes. And I'm like, Cam Ward, you've convinced me. Your team is mid. I believe you. And so I don't think he'll quite have the pop necessarily that I think a Genty will right entering the league as a rookie. So I'm going with Genty, the Raiders, getting that offensive rookie of the year.
Interesting. I am also taking a running back, but I am not taking Ashton Genty. I'm going to go with Omarion Hampton. He was Jim Harbaugh's guy from the beginning of this process. We thought if Loveland somehow got to him, it would be Loveland, and if not, it's going to be Omarion Hampton. I just love the way that Jim Harbaugh utilizes running backs. I think we saw last year a running back room that, like, if you aren't actually thinking about them as the Chargers running backs, and in that system, you're like, this is a pretty mid running back room. This is like, let's get a stable of a bunch of like the top end of the league, but still RB2s, like top end of the league RB2s, and let's make it work. And they had a great run game last year, and I feel like now they've got an actual bell cow staple running back. Also, I think that team and that roster is just in a better place to perform better around him. I certainly like their offensive line far better than I like the Raiders' offensive line, and so I like what they're going to be able to do to get him going. And I also like the Chargers' pass game better than I like the Raiders' pass game right now, which means that teams need to play a little truer to, things can go either way. I'm going to be honest, though. You said you were between Cam Ward and Ashton Genty. I was between Omari and Hampton. And sneaky, it would not surprise me if Tet McMillan is actually in the conversation for this.
Sure.
Carolina just traded away Adam Thielen. Saw Bryce Young at the end of the year after his benching when he came back, and he looked much more like the type of quarterback that you'd want to select with the number 1 overall pick. I think that Bryce Young is going to have a really good year this year. Again, I think they're playing in the NFC South, which we said, when we did our division predictions, the Buccaneers are going to win that. But there's a lot of games that they're playing this year that the Panthers could win. And so I can see a world where the Panthers are around 500 and Tet McMillan is finally the thing that breaks the cap off of Bryce Young and his abilities so far. So don't be surprised to see Tet McMillan around the conversation, but I do think that it's going to be Omari and Hampton.
For Hampton, does it concern you with the Slater injury that Rashawn Slater is going to be out for the year at left tackle? Because he's a really good tackle, man.
Oh, yeah.
Joel's great on the other side, of course, but missing that dude who they just paid. They paid and he got injured like in the next week.
Yeah, no, I think there's a world that within the next 3 years, we're saying the Chargers have the best tackle tandem in the country, like it's college football, in the NFL. And I mean, yeah, like, a big injury like that to an offensive lineman, absolutely. But I don't think it is as devastating as, say, if, the Raiders lost their left tackle. I think that yes, he's very good, but I think the rest of the unit is still really, really good. That, it won't be as good, obviously, but I'm not too concerned about it. It's not like they're one good offensive lineman that they could guarantee they could run the ball to that side and they'd be fine. He gets hurt and now it's like, well, they're basically screwed. I don't feel so bad, about what his production can be like even without Rashawn Slater. And especially then thinking about what it might look like 2 years from now with Rashawn Slater back. I think we might be talking Omari and Hampton 2 years from now as like, the way we were talking about Saquon Barkley really early in his career, just because I think he'll have the things necessary around him. Good coaching, good offensive line, quarterback that means you have to be careful and can't just overplay the run. All right, getting into our defensive rookie of the year picks. Nick, why don't you start us off? Though I'm pretty sure this will be pretty quick and easy for both of us.
Yeah, it's pretty chalky. It's Abdul Carter. He's just at another tier when you see him play. He's just got the explosiveness, the movement, the strength. He's going to be playing on a stacked defensive line where he's still going to get a bunch of snaps. They might move him around just because they have the 3 edge rushers with him, Burns, and Thibodeau. And just being able to have those 3 dudes, you're going to be able to have one of them rush from the interior on passing downs. And so you might get some really good interior matchups for Carter as well to be able to get some pressures and sacks. And so I think Abdul Carter is just kind of teed up to be able to put up one of those seasons like the edge rushers we've seen the last couple of years, like a Chase Young when Chase Young was a rookie, where he put up 7.5 sacks, but he was just, you could tell he was a stud pre-ACL tear. Like you could tell he was the leader of that stacked Washington defensive line. I feel like Abdul Carter's a clear better player than that. And he's going to be playing on a defensive line that's probably clearly better than that one too. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going Abdul Carter. The sleeper that I had one other dude lined up, and that will be Malachi Starks from the Ravens. Last year, the Ravens, they had Ardarius Washington come in and play about 2/3 of the way through the season. And if you remember, the Ravens defense was terrible. And then they switched Ardarius Washington in for Marcus Williams, who they got from the Saints a couple of years ago. And their defense turned around real quick with Ardarius Washington. They were letting up huge plays early in the season. The Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow combination was eating them alive when they were playing pre the safety change. And then Ardarius Washington came in and stabilized things. Malachi Starks, who many people believed pre-draft was a true blue chip player, as a safety out of Georgia, has that pedigree. I think you're going from a dude in Ardarius Washington who's a good, small, undrafted player, but who's good, to a dude who should honestly be really, really good, if not great, from the jump, playing on a defense that's going to be really good, going to be able to just, I think, show why he was drafted as highly as he was on a really good defense. So I think he's not going to have the splash plays of like the big sacks on a great defensive line. But I think the Ravens are still going to be in so many big games with Lamar Jackson on their team that you're going to see Starks being in that safety pairing with Kyle Hamilton. So I'd go with him as a sleeper there.
Yeah, I think the thing that, while I think there is a world where Malachi Starks plays this year better than any other rookie on the defensive side of the ball, because it's safety, there's not going to be the stat things that you want to look for necessarily, unless he, gets like 8 picks this year, right? So I definitely think edge is the way to go. I agree. Also, Abdul Carter. Couple other sleepers. I think there are a couple corners to watch. Those being Jahdae Barron with the Broncos, because no one's going to want to throw it towards Pat Surtain, and so you've got him on the other side of the field. If he's as advertised, then he will have a great year. And we might be saying that the Broncos have the best 1-2 punch at corner by the end of this year. Also, Will Johnson, who fell drastically in the draft, looked great in the preseason. Looked like he should have been, a top 10 pick. And wouldn't surprise me with him as well. Other edges, I mean, again, it's Abdul Carter's to lose. That said, you have guys like second round guys like Donovan Ezeraku now that Micah Parsons is gone, but also means he's like their number one pass rusher, and teams will basically just put a red star on him to make sure that he's not, feasting. Sneaky JT Tuimoloau out of Ohio State at Indianapolis, maybe. Again, edges and corners are the positions you think about because of the stats, how easy it is for them to get stats like interceptions, sacks, fumbles. But I agree. I think Abdul Carter is by far the guy going into this year. It's certainly his to lose. Interesting thing to say. For both of these spots, neither of us predicted Travis Hunter in there. So,
for neither of them, yeah.
We'll see what happens there.
I think hypothetically, if there was just a rookie of the year, just irregardless of side of the ball, that Hunter could just win that, being like, oh yeah, he just had 800 yards receiving and had 4 interceptions. I'm like, oh yeah, I could see him overall. But I don't know that they're going to be able to commit him to one side of the ball where you get like 1,100 yards receiving, or you get like 5, 6, 7 picks or anything crazy like that. Yeah. Or I feel like it's like having 2 part-time jobs. 2 part-time jobs makes it much harder to be employee of the month at one of the jobs. You're grinding your butt off in 2 areas. You're split.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, and something else thinking about him, and I'm thinking about this a lot because Syracuse has a guy, Demetrius Samuel Jr., who's a 17-year-old. He's a freshman that they're planning to play both ways this year, both as a corner and as a wide receiver. And he did not have a great game this last weekend against Tennessee. And one of the things that some of the Syracuse beat reporters were saying is like, and not to minimize Travis Hunter and what he did, but the start of his career was at Jackson State, right? It wasn't playing in Mercedes-Benz Georgia Dome against Tennessee, right? And I think we saw in preseason, Travis Hunter, like, okay, you're going to have to adjust. Like, there is going to be, with all guys making that next step, whether it's high school to college or college to NFL, there's a learning curve. Now, imagine you have a learning curve on both sides of the ball. And like you said, you can't devote all of your time to getting over one of those learning curves, right? It's going to be a challenge. I think by this time next year, I think certainly he will be, much above average at one or both sides of the ball, but it's gonna take some time for him.
I just have this random question for you. If Travis Hunter makes a Pro Bowl in his career, Which side of the ball do you think he'd make a Pro Bowl on first?
Corner.
You think corner over receiver?
I'm not impressed with him as a receiver.
Okay. I think receiver is also just way more stacked than corner, where you have a bunch of superstar receivers. Corners, I feel like it's harder to come by. So I'm there with you, I think, too.
Yeah. Well, and again, like, okay, say on offense, you have 750 yards, 60 receptions, and 5 touchdowns in a year.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a corner and you have 5 picks in a year, you're a Pro Bowler, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like regardless, I mean, not always regardless, but in theory, regardless of if outside of those 5 picks, 75% of the time you're getting burnt, you have 5 picks, those equal that much. So, but yeah,
Marcus Peters or Trevon Diggs on the Cowboys, where there was literally the game that he played that he got the pick 6 and then immediately after let up a massive touchdoe.
Yeah, tried to jump
graded on a completely different scale.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm just not really impressed with Hunter as a receiver. Just seeing some of his route running for college route running, it was really good. But again, we're talking about this learning curve and these adjustments he's going to have to make. Seeing clips from joint practices and stuff that it's like you're not getting separation doing that. You need to figure out how to level up your route running abilities. So moving on to new award this year, Protector of the Year. The NFL finally going to shine the spotlight on the offensive line down in the trenches, which is super duper cool. My pick for this, though I'm going to sound like a homer, it's fine, I don't care, is Penei Sewell. I mean, he's one of the best. My other pick would be Lane Johnson, but we'll see what happens with him with the knee, and what's going on there. So yeah, I'll say Penei Sewell, and I don't care.
I like it. Sewell's just so good, and he's so young. He's such a great tackle for being such a young dude. He's just so polished. The dude that I'm going with, he also came out and was awesome as a rookie back a couple of years ago. That would be Tristan Wirfs on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Nice. I just think that in the pass game, in the run game on this offense this year, I think you're going to see Mike Evans still be really good. I think you're going to see Igbukah still be really good. The run game has really leveled up last year, especially. They had a 3-headed monster at running back that I think if you get the volume of carries to all the dudes that you got would be amazing. Bucky Irving, White, and then your dude out of Syracuse, who I'm blanking on his name. John Tucker as well, who had the crazy fantasy game against the Saints, I think it was last year, who dropped like a 30 bomb or something like that. I think that level of volume that the running backs could get as far as carries and yards combined with a really potent passing attack could make this. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could be like if the Bengals had a good defense. Like, I think that's the kind of team that you're looking at where Baker Mayfield isn't Joe Burrow, but I think Baker Mayfield can still pilot an elite level offense with the level of weapons he has, with the offensive line he has. And I think that Tristan Wirfs is the head of that offensive line and a dude who in the pass game and the run game commands it. And I think that Tampa Bay could stack up a bunch of wins this year and that this team might be getting some awards. And I think Tristan Wirfs is the most likely dude probably to get one of those awards. The other dude, Lane Johnson, of course, you brought him up. I think that with these offensive linemen, just because the average fan like you or I doesn't watch on a play-by-play basis every single snap they're playing, notoriety and name value, I think, just holds such a high standard for a bunch of these offensive linemen, especially for common folks who are just everyday football fans. But I think Lane Johnson has kind of superseded that with how long he's been around, with how good he's been in the pass game and the run game, how strong he is, how highly he was drafted back in the day. Everybody knew he was going to be amazing from day one as the number 4 overall pick in that draft. I just think Lane Johnson still in his mid-30s is going to be so great. And you can just bank on him in an Eagles offense that I think is also going to be really good.
Yeah, For sure. Absolutely. All right. Moving on to offensive player of the year. Nick, who do you have as your offensive player of the year this year?
Offensive, defensive, and MVP were the three awards that I actually struggled with the most, I think, where normally people think of those as the three main awards. And I was like, well, I just don't know if there are clear-cut picks for me that I really, really like. But offensive player of the year, I'm going with Jahmyr Gibbs. Your dude, your baby. You love Jahmyr Gibbs. He's really awesome. He's so explosive in the pass game and the run game. I think probably one of the main reasons why I think that he would be the leader in the clubhouse for me is that I think that he has the speed of the NFL down. He can run by anybody. He's able to just break away at any moment. But I think with the offensive coordinator change, that you could just see their new offensive coordinator go with the different approach than Ben Johnson of, wait a second, I have Jahmyr Gibbs and I can draw up plays for him. Why don't I just give him the ball like all the time? Like Ben Johnson was giving Jahmyr Gibbs the ball a lot, but he was also like, David Montgomery, go slam your head into a brick wall. Okay, we're going to be passing in the short yardage to Laporta and to Amon-Ra St. Brown. And it's like, no, give Gibbs every screen pass, every toss out into the flat, every run. Like you might just see them give Gibbs the ball a ton of times. And I think he could easily stack up 2,000 yards from scrimmage just on volume. I think he's just so explosive where he could average clear over 5 yards a carry and over 8 or 9 yards a catch and just be insanely explosive in volume this year for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. If I get going, then people will be mad that I talk about the Lions too much. So ditto everything you just said. My offensive player of the year pick also comes out of the NFC North. And this is very dependent on one factor. But let me just put this out there. If J.J. McCarthy is good, not great, good. If J.J. McCarthy is good, Justin Jefferson is great enough that I think he'll win it this year.
Okay.
I think they will do a good job getting him the ball. I like the wide receiver room that they have that is strong enough that you can't just, give Jefferson the Megatron treatment and it be fine, because they've got other guys in that room. They just traded for Adam Thielen. They've got other guys that can catch the ball, let alone having TJ Hawkinson at tight end, that I think, and, we've talked about this before, Kevin O'Connell being a quarterback whisperer. I think J.J. McCarthy, if J.J. McCarthy is not a bust, right, that's what I think the threshold is. As long as J.J. McCarthy isn't a bust, Kevin O'Connell will do what he has to do to make J.J. McCarthy good enough to get J.J. in, or Justin Jefferson. You can't say J.J. because of J.J. McCarthy. To get Justin Jefferson in the offensive player of the year conversation. And I liked what I saw out of J.J. McCarthy in college. I know everyone was like, well, he barely had to throw it. It's like, okay, but when he did, he was great, so I believe in J.J. McCarthy, and because I believe in him, that I think Justin Jefferson this year will win the Offensive Player of the Year award.
I like that. I think J.J. McCarthy has two thresholds that we as fans are going to be looking at. Last year, Sam Darnold, regular season, was awesome. Playoffs was bad. And the last game of the season against the Lions, he was bad as well before the playoff game. And then before that, pre-injury Kirk Cousins, that is a threshold. If J.J. McCarthy, not even this year, just total at some point in the next couple of years, can be better than this year Sam Darnold and can reach over that Kirk Cousins line, that threshold, that average just around the top 10-ish, just outside the top 10 quarterback, I think the Vikings will be incredibly happy. Jefferson should be really happy. He's got a stronger arm than either of those dudes does, McCarthy. And so I think that the ceiling, hopefully, should be above those. But I'm looking for those two thresholds. Can he be better than Sam Darnold? Can he be better than Kirk Cousins? And I think it's possible. but I am concerned about it.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Obviously all of this are predictions and projections, but that one includes a prediction or a projection of someone that isn't even going to be one of the award winners. So we'll see what happens. So moving on to defensive player of the year, Nick, who are you liking for defensive player of the year?
Not TJ Watt as my favorite for it. My favorite for it, a dude that just got traded, who we didn't even get to talk about last week. That'd be Micah Parsons with a newly minted $47 million a year contract. Parsons, I think, is just going to be crazy efficient as a pass rusher, as he's always been. I think they're going to be a team that stacks up a bunch of wins, a defense that should be pretty darn good. And I just think that this is one of those awards where the players kind of take turns, where Nick Bosa won the award. It was his turn. Myles Garrett won the award. It was his turn. TJ Watt had won the award. It was his turn. Where it seems like one of those awards where they really don't like giving the same player it multiple times. They really don't want to give TJ Watt the award twice. They really don't want to give Nick Bosa the award multiple times. It's just hard if you're not Aaron Donald or JJ Watt to be able to get a second defensive player of the year. I think that it's Micah Parsons' turn. And I also think that the press he's going to get being on the Packers, every single one of his sacks is going to be even bigger than it was in Dallas. Every single time he makes a game-breaking play, you're going to see the highlights all over the place. And you already did when he was in Dallas, but now it's going to be elevated because we traded multiple first-round picks for this dude. He's wearing number 1. He's our superstar. He's our spokesperson. He's the man. And so I think that he's primed to be able to, even if he has like a 14 sack season, he doesn't even have to be in the 20 sack range at all. I think 14 sacks, you could see a deploy here from Micah Parsons. I think TJ Watt, obviously, I'm rocking the jersey. I'm a Steelers fan. I think he could get another second place in the defensive player of the year conversation. He's already gotten several second place finishes. I think that this defense, with the number of cornerbacks of quality that they have, should make the coverage better to where the sack volume should be able to go up for Watt and the Steelers. I think that the volume of edge rushers and defensive linemen they have should allow for them to stay fresh, stay healthy, stay rested, and be able to just be more efficient. And so I think that this defense could be one of the better Steelers defenses the last couple of years. And then I think my sleeper is a dude who's going to be on a team a lot of folks are thinking is going to pop this year. That'd be Christian Gonzalez on the Patriots. I just think of him so highly, where his speed, his size, his coverage ability on a team that should be much better coached, on a defense and offense that should be way more competitive. I think he's a sleeper who I really like in this spot, actually, similar to PS2 last year.
All right. I don't hate that. My defensive player of the year pick is one that I think is obvious. I think without him getting hurt last year, he is clearly the defensive player of the year. He was on pace, Nick. Guess how many sacks he was on pace for last year?
Last year, in what was it, 5 games, he had like 7. I think he was on pace, if I remember, the number was like 24, 25.
26.
Right?
He had 7.5.
Okay.
He had 7.5 through 5 games, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, so that just crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. Similar to what you were talking about with TJ Watt, I think that the coverage, the Lions really knew that they had to upgrade their defense, and they did. And so because of that, I think that, there's going to be more opportunity for him, and he's going to be the one to slot in there. He's just poised for it. Last year was supposed to be his breakout year before the injury happened. And all signs have shown that he hasn't. I mean, obviously you take a step back when you have to come back from something like that, but he's not come back to worse than he was before the injuries happened. He's come back to right where he was. And so I think it's his time and it's his year. Micah, sorry, next year will be yours, I guess. because I just think Hutchinson is going to have way too many sacks for you to ignore. So,
okay, there you go. Last year, he was going to have too many sacks to ignore. He was going to be the clear, even if he didn't stay on that pace, if he got to 20, he was still going to be the depoy last year, I think.
Yeah.
Even if their defense had all the other injuries, I think they would have still been, he would have still been too clear to be depoy last year.
Yeah,
but
I completely agree.
Yeah.
All right, next is one. Honestly, I think it's my favorite award to sort of predict and project because it isn't just as simple as, well, which team is the best, which player is the best, who's the best player on the team that's the best, because of those weird circumstances and scenarios that sometimes play out. Maybe it's a team that is not the best team in the league, but has taken the most significant jump, right? Or stuff like that. And that is the Coach of the Year award. I think it's going to be really interesting this year. I think there are some coaches that for the last few years have sort of been in the Coach of the Year conversation that at this point they've just established themselves as, yeah, we're some of the best coaches in the league. And there's a reason that we're not seeing Andy Reid win it, every year. And there's a reason we didn't see Bill Belichick win it every year, right? Because, it's kind of similar to Defensive Player of the Year. It's we give guys their due, but also we're really looking at those stories. So Nick, who are you thinking is going to be the Coach of the Year this year?
So I'm there with you. My thought process was along the same lines yours were, where I just basically view this as very similar to our pop drops and locks. To me, Coach of the Year is what team overexceeded expectations the most. And so you see somebody like Belichick or Reed, their expectations are already so high where it's so hard to get up over that bar by a ton. It's so hard to exceed those expectations when they're so high. And so you see a dude like Kevin Stefanski have 2 Coach of the Years and Mike Tomlin have none. And it's like, wait a second. So do we think Stefanski's a better coach than Tomlin? No, like people don't think that, honestly. At least most people don't, I would hope. But mostly I would just say that the Browns have really low expectations a lot of the time, and Stefanski's overachieved a couple of years. Tomlin, everybody expects them to go 7-10, 8-9, 9-8, 10-7, right in that mid. And Tomlin's really good at being mid. He's very, very efficient at that. And so Tomlin's just a really hard dude, I feel like, to get up above that level. That being said, one of the teams that I already talked about before a little bit as some team to watch this year that has a player who I think could be a sleeper for a previous award, that would be Mike Vrabel and the Patriots. Talking about Christian Gonzalez earlier, I think Vrabel and the Patriots, that people are already starting to get a little bit higher on the Patriots. I feel like I can see a world pretty clearly where Vrabel and the Patriots get up to like 10 wins. And then you go, well, they got 10 wins and they should have had the number 1 pick last year. They were so terrible. And then Milton had a pretty good game against the Bills backups and the Bills didn't want to win. And so they got out of having the first pick overall. And that probably cost them because they'd be in a much better spot if they had the number 1 overall pick last year. But it just means that the team was pretty damn bad last year. And if they're a lot better this year than the worst team in the league, they're going to be viewed as like, who made those changes? Vrabel did. Vrabel and Drake May taking these big jumps. So I think Vrabel's going to get a bunch of the credit here. Another team that I think has some of these pop kind of qualities that I talked about before on the previous episode will be Raheem Morris and the Falcons. I think the Falcons have the potential to make the playoffs. I think they're kind of in that Patriots bucket of could be a wild card team. And so I think Raheem Morris, when you saw how last year went with Kirk Cousins and the offense being really substandard, I think that you could see a team that the offense being way improved under Penix and the defense being improved with the edge rushers they drafted, that the Falcons could be a team that sneaks into the playoffs and Raheem Morris gets some credit there. So I think that he's a pretty deep sleeper, to be honest, but I would like Morris potentially as a long shot.
Yeah. I want to show you something really, really interesting that sort of tells the tale of this. These are the beginning of the year betting odds for the Coach of the Year award.
Okay.
If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, the longest odds belong to Andy Reid and Nick Sirianni. Those were the two coaches in the Super Bowl last year. Then Harbaugh, McDermott, Brian Callahan, Dan Campbell, right? Those are the bottom six. Kevin Stefanski is tied in there. Those are the bottom seven. I think it's really, really interesting that 5 of those 7 are guys that were all in the playoffs last year. I don't think anyone would say that Campbell, McDermott, Harbaugh, Sirianni, and Reed are 5 of the 6 worst coaches in the NFL, right? But again, they have set the expectation of what it is that they do, and because of that, they're that far down. As you move farther up, right, you start to see it sort of mesh a little bit between, well, odds are bad because it's a bad team, or odds are bad because they're not that great of a coach, with teams like guys like Callahan, Stefanski, Schottenheimer. But even still, like it's just interesting how that works out, right? Like you go all the way to the top. Ben Johnson, no head coaching experience. Mike Vrabel, first year with them. Liam Cohen, first year with them. Kellen Moore, first year with them. The 4 of them are that high because the odds makers are expecting those teams to be much better than they have been. We're talking 5 to 7 game or win, increase for those teams, which would get those coaches, show how big of a step they've made, which I just think is interesting when you look at it that way. That said, I think, and this is I had somebody else in mind, but I'm just changing it, going with my gut here. I think that Jim Harbaugh is going to win Coach of the Year this year. I think that it's the bar of, well, how much better did this team get is lower because we've seen the Chargers make the playoffs, be a wild card team for so many years. One, I think if they dethrone the Chiefs in the division, then that's a wrap, right? Like immediately. I think if the Chargers, don't lose some of those games that they shouldn't lose, that they tend to lose, and win a playoff game, that is a massive leap for this Chargers unit, right? Like, if instead of being 10-7, they're even 11-6, but they win a wild card game, then it's like, dang, okay, now we can finally be like, wow, okay, look how good the Chargers are, right? If Justin Herbert finally has a year that's like, dang, like those are some like almost MVP or almost MVP numbers, it'll be because of Jim Harbaugh, right? If Omarion Hampton wins the Offensive Player of the Year, like I predicted earlier, it's because that Chargers team is a much better Chargers team, much more well-rounded. And, I think even through the Brandon Staley era, even when they were making the playoffs, it was, well, here's fluky wins, just enough of those that you're able to get by. And so the more I'm saying all of this, the more I'm convincing myself of it. I think Jim Harbaugh is going to end up being the Coach of the Year. We'll be able to accept that and with a big smile on his face and tell the NCAA that they can screw off. He doesn't need to go back. For 10
years, that is.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Jim Harbaugh.
Good pick. I like that a lot.
All right, we have 2 left. Comeback Player of the Year, and then we're ending with the big one, MVP. Nick, who are you liking for Comeback Player of the Year?
Comeback Player of the Year. I got a dude who you had winning a different award. I would think you would know who it is. That would be Aiden Hutchinson. He's just a really great player who I think even if he doesn't have a game-breaking season, if he just has an awesome season, if he has a 13-sack season, I think that you're going to see him probably winning this award depending on how the other candidates do. The other dude who I really actually like for this because I think the offense is going to be explosive is Dak Prescott. Prescott got injured last year, and the offense was pretty terrible. And so I think with Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, I think this year you could see Dak pretty clearly leading the league in yards and getting somewhere in the high 4, low 5,000 yard range. And I think seeing a 5,000 yard passer like fits the mold of Comeback Player of the Year. I also had Christian McCaffrey in mind, but I just struggle with his health a lot more than even Dak Prescott or Hutchinson pretty cleanly there. I think Hutchinson's the clear favorite for me. Then Prescott, because of the stats, I think he's going to pile up some crazy stats. And then I think Christian McCaffrey, his high end of play is just really good, but I'm worried about him in the Niners.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go with McCaffrey because the way that it goes with Christian McCaffrey is you have a healthy year where he's an all pro running back, then you have an unhealthy year. Last year was the unhealthy year. This is seeming the year that he would be an all pro running back, and so I don't pick another Lions guy. Though I certainly think there's a world where Aiden Hutchinson is Defensive Player of the Year and Comeback Player of the Year because of it's set up for him. But for the sake of having a little bit broader of a view on things, I'm going to go with McCaffrey. Last year was weird for him too with the injuries. It started with the tendonitis in both his Achilles, right, which was weird. So I don't know. Also, San Francisco traded away Jordan Mason, and so that I think. Shoot, did they sign Raheem Mostert? Is he their backup running back?
They traded for Brian Robinson.
That's right. They traded for Brian Robinson from Washington, who they'll give touches to, but I think McCaffrey at his best, even at his age, compared to Robinson at his best at his age, I think McCaffrey is the clear front runner, and Robinson will be every third drive, give McCaffrey a spell. So I think when it comes to offensive players, I think Aiden Hutchinson is clearly if you stay healthy and do what we know you're capable of, it's clearly yours. I think for offensive players, McCaffrey fits that mold. So I'm going with Christian McCaffrey.
Sweet.
All right. Last one, the big one. MVP, NFL MVP. This is another one that it does feel like a little bit, not quite as much as we were talking with Defensive Player of the Year, but a little bit that there's a little bit of storytelling to it. Josh Allen won it last year. I don't think you can say that he did not have an MVP caliber season, but at the same time, it's like, okay, Lamar Jackson had to, is that the reason that he didn't necessarily win it because of voter fatigue there? Even though he had a season better than both of his MVP seasons statistically. So this one will be interesting. Again, it's probably going to a quarterback. Sucks. I know. Personally, I think because the MVP is almost always a quarterback, that they should eliminate quarterback from Offensive Player of the Year award, so that you have opportunity for other guys to get that. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Nick, NFL MVP, who are you predicting to win it all this year?
I struggled with this one. This is one where it's a clear quarterback award, and it's a stats award combined with wins, is how I view it. Where I think you need a dude who's in the 4,000 or 5,000 yard passing area while having probably 12 plus wins for the team. That's kind of how it meshes to me. And actually this year, I think that there could be a number of teams that have 5,000 yard passers, or at least close to that. I think that you could see Mahomes. I think that you could see Dak Prescott. I think you could see Baker Mayfield. I think those are just three dudes who I think I could see all of those dudes having like 5,000 yard passing seasons this year. I think passing yards are going to be way up in 2025. That being said, I think Mahomes would probably be my favorite for this. I think that the Chiefs offense has just been kind of the low light of the team the last couple of years. And I think this could be the year that Rashee Rice comes back from his suspension, Worthy's back and playing at a higher level. Then you have Kelsey, who should be rejuvenated. Hollywood Brown should be healthy. I just think that this could be the most explosive Chiefs offense since the 2 Super Bowl wins ago. The first one that they beat the Eagles, or the one they beat the Eagles in that year when the offense was explosive but without Tyreek. I think you could see the offense return to that level of form. And that year, Mahomes won the MVP. So I feel like that's a pretty safe bet. I would also lean potentially Jalen Hurts, since I think they could become more pass happy. So I think with A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, Barkley contributing more in the passing game than the running game, I think that you could see Jalen Hurts put up a 4,000 whatever yard season, and they pile up a bunch of wins, and the offense is really high end. Where I think that Jalen Hurts potentially is a sleeper, as a deep dark horse, since I don't know that he's ever produced up to that level. But I just don't see a bunch of other clear dudes that I'm like, this dude is set up for MVP. Last year, I thought Stroud's offensive setup was going to be really high end, and Burrow's offensive setup was going to be really high level. And both of those dudes had the potential to be. Burrow's offense was amazing. Stroud's offense, the receivers just got so injured, and the offensive line got torn apart with how bad it was. But I feel like if you saw Stroud's receivers all stay healthy all year, and if Burrow's team wasn't as terrible with the defense being atrocious, I think both of those dudes could have had a shot for MVP potentially if those things had happened. But I don't see a clear other dude outside of a Mahomes this year, I think, that's set up in that sort of way.
Yeah, I want Joe Burrow to win it. I want Joe Burrow to get the recognition that he deserves. I want him to get the accolades that he deserves. Right now, he's on the career trajectory of Dan Marino, and that he's going to be one of the great what ifs of NFL history when it comes to so much talent. What if he had competent coaching and a good defense, but we're just not there. And I agree with your formula. And because of the 12 plus wins, it leads me towards guys that are going to be winning their division, obviously. I think that guys like Allen, Mahomes, and Jackson are the sexy picks. That said, I think if Lamar Jackson did not win it last year with the type of season that he had, with the idea that he'll probably regress a little bit unless everybody regresses, I don't necessarily think it's going to be him. I am concerned about Patrick Mahomes and about the Chiefs, and I'm concerned about them because of how hard it is to get back, to be good enough and get back to the Super Bowl after a Super Bowl loss. His only other Super Bowl loss, what happened the next year? They didn't make it, right? That said, they were still the number one team in the AFC, and he still had a great year. So, I'm not using that to just completely throw him out of the equation, but I think it's, worth mentioning. Josh Allen had a really, really great year last year. I do think that there's potential for him to have just as good of a year this year. I think we're looking at Keon Coleman being another year in. I think we're, also looking at some of the other receivers that, they have. He still has the tight ends that he likes, as well as being one of the best, runners of the football at the quarterback position in the NFL. You look at you think about other guys, Jaden Daniels. I think there's going to be a fall off for him and for the Commanders a little bit. Jalen Hurts, like you talked about, he's never really produced the numbers that would get him there. On top of that, Saquon Barkley, made the entire offense that much better, but also made what looked like his level of production not as significant as it was. And so then, if you're looking at the odds, right, you're starting to get down through there, and there are question marks about all of those guys. And then you get to guys that raise even more question marks. Like, I know I'm really, really high on the Chargers. Justin Herbert's there. I don't think he's going to win MVP this year. I think he could finally sort of break through the glass ceiling to have a season up to his potential and the reason that he was drafted as high as he was. But I don't know about him for the MVP, especially like, are they going to win the division, right? Like Sam Darnold, right? Think about Sam Darnold, had really good numbers last year. They won 12 games, but they didn't win the division. He wasn't even a finalist, right? So I don't know. This one's really tough. I do think I'm going to go with Josh Allen. I think the Bills just have such control of that division. I think that, he's going to be better. I like the schedule that they have. They only leave the Eastern time zone once, I think, this year.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I saw that. Yeah, it's either that. There's something about travel. I think it's either that or I think it's that, and also like from October through the end of the season, the farthest they travel is Miami, I think. Um, yeah, something that like screams that the Bills have have a really simple and easy regular season ahead of them. Um, you know, compared to some other schedules out there. So I like Josh Allen. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if some of these other quarterbacks have good enough years to get into the conversation. Um, I think if Jordan Love finally forgets how to turn over the football, you could see him, get up in there, or the conversation be made. I think the conversation could be made for Jared Goff if he's continues to be as efficient as he has been over the last couple of years. So there are other guys, Baker Mayfield. There are other guys that are not like the clear front runners that like if you want to be trendy, you could make mention of them. But I really think this will come down to Mahomes, Jackson, or Allen. I would like to put Burrow in there, but I don't think that the Bengals are even going to be sniffing the playoffs really. And so with that, I'm going to go with Josh Allen as my NFL MVP pick.
Repeating after last year, winning it too.
Yeah, repeating for him. I think statistically, the Bills are going to look like one of the best teams that we've ever seen. Similar to how, just to be fair, similar to how the Lions looked last year. The Lions statistically looked like one of the best offenses ever. I do think that even regardless of that qualifier statistically in there, I do think they still were one of the best offenses, that we've seen, especially recently. But still, they played the Titans, they played the Jaguars, right? They played the Cowboys last year, the decimated Cowboys. Actually, no, it was before the Cowboys were as good as they were.
That was when they were pulling out the trick plays because they were angry about the bad call that happened. Was it last year or 2 years ago?
2 years ago they were still in the race for the number 1 seed when that happened.
When Dan Campbell kept calling like trick plays and going for it and stuff. It wasn't the 2-point conversion, was it? It was the 2-point conversion.
It was a 2-point conversion. They scored a touchdown. They kick an extra point to go to overtime. He told the offense before they went on the field for that drive, we're scoring and we're going for 2 and we're winning. Mm-hmm. They converted it. They called an illegal receiver.
Ineligible man. It was the sixth offensive lineman that didn't go up to the ref, right? Or am I blanking?
Well, what happened was they threw to the offensive lineman. It was caught. It was great. Everyone's celebrating. Then they threw the flag and said that he never reported as eligible.
That's what.
Then they were like, no, he did report as eligible. 1, he did report as eligible, and 2, he didn't need to report as eligible because he was the last guy on the line and wasn't lined up as a lineman. He was lined up in the backfield. Mm-hmm. Campbell was like, in our pre-game meeting with the refs, I told them this is one of our plays that we might run tonight. I'm showing you all of it so that you can see it. You can know what we're doing, what we're trying to do, so it's not catching you completely off guard. They said it looked good then. They did it, and the rest were like, no. And so it was a whole thing. But anyway, those are our award predictions. Oh, man, you got me riled up. Those are our award predictions for the 25 NFL season. We're really excited about first game of the year happening this Thursday. Everyone was wondering, is Micah Parsons going to play for the Cowboys? The answer is no, because he isn't a Dallas Cowboy anymore. And once again, Jerry Jones gets in his own way. And there you go. So anyway, enjoy the game this week. Enjoy all the games this weekend. And we're really looking forward to getting back with you next week to talk about what happened.